Next up, again, the trade talks are booming. And the Golden State Warriors are at the very center of a lot of it. And the reason for that is centered around the Jonathan Kuminga dilemma. I've mentioned it throughout this podcast, but specifically for this section, it has to be reiterated. Jonathan Kuminga was in a dispute with the Golden State Warriors front office about getting a significant extension to be on the team that would value him as somebody that has long-term equity in the team as a potential starter moving forward. Right? This is for a guy who has been in and out of the starting lineup with the Warriors due to his lack of being able to fit their play style and not being able to adapt to the way that Steve Kerr coaches Golden State Warriors basketball. With that being said, Jonathan Kuminga is always going to be at the center of any Golden State Warriors trade. They've been named in trade situations related to Anthony Davis, Lauri Markkanen, DeMar DeRozan. But a player that was mentioned most recently, I think is very interesting, is Brooklyn Nets forward Michael Porter Jr. And see, the interesting thing is, there was always an understanding that Michael Porter Jr. would likely be flipped from the Brooklyn Nets to get more long-term draft capital slash potential young players that could help in what would be, a full-blown reset for the Brooklyn Nets. I mean, shoot, they drafted 5 players in the 2025 draft class and took 3 point guards, right? This is a team that clearly is trying to get younger by hook or crook so much, and I'd say by crook so much that they weren't even willing to extend Cam Thomas, who's arguably their first or second best player on the roster right now in terms of what he brings productivity wise. Yet they want to keep their books so clean to maybe be in the mix down the line in 2027 or to draft capital up to be able to really reroute this team. And so there was always the understanding that Michael Porter Jr. would probably be flipped, and the intention would be to try to get a young player and or multiple draft picks that would really help them build up. And for context, Michael Porter Jr. is averaging 24.3 points, 7.4 rebounds, and he's shooting very efficient across the board. And he's doing it on much higher volume than he did with the Denver Nuggets, obviously, given the fact that he was on most nights the fourth option behind Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, and even Aaron Gordon to a certain degree, right? And so you get a legitimate, 3-level scorer, someone who can be a knockdown 3-point shooter and has also shown real production on a team that has won a championship. So you don't have to ask yourself whether or not he can fit within the construct of playing on a team with high expectations because he's done that already. And we have to remember, a lot of the reason why he was moved had a lot more to do with the financial aspect of the Denver Nuggets just as much as it had anything to do with his productivity. Granted, his injury situation leading into the postseason made him a unplayable player to a certain extent, and that hurt them as well, something that probably also contributed to him being expendable. But more off, one of the biggest things was just simply the fact that he's a player that long term, when you're talking about trying to build a defensive infrastructure around Nikola Jokic, probably was just not somebody that you could really rely on. But what does that have to do with the Golden State Warriors? I'm going to read something from Last Word on Sports that I thought was really helpful in terms of explaining why him on Golden State would actually work. And it says Michael Porter Jr. would immediately reshape the Warriors' offensive geometry. His gravity opens up driving lanes that would be for guys like Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler, primarily Jimmy Butler, who is the best on the team at getting to the free throw line, widens screens and boosts every off-ball set. His size provides better matchups against bigger wings, while his shooting sharpens Golden State's spacing. Very desperately needed, given the fact that Draymond Green, Jimmy Butler, and whoever is playing center when Draymond Green is not on the floor, or if you want to be more specific, even at their 3 spot, not named Jimmy Butler. Overall, this team does not have great 3-point spacing around Steph Curry. Like, outside of Steph Curry, this team is not shooting the ball from beyond the arc. Buddy Hield is having a horrible year from three this season after having a complete revelation for his career once again, because it feels like Buddy does this every other year where he has an absolute lights out 3-point shooting year and then comes back the next season and it seems like he lost his mojo. This seems like the year where he lost his mojo. And so they need a 3-point shooter to help with adding spacing next to these guys. It says Curry benefits from the added movement threat, while Porter Jr. benefits from Curry's gravity. Both can score without heavy dribbling, creating efficient synchronized possessions. I see the Michael Porter Jr. conversation as a potential shift in the Warriors' core identity and admission that they need a dominant scorer beside Curry. They should do it right. They should do right by him. I also think it should be kind of an indication that getting a player like Michael Porter Jr. is also understanding how important Klay Thompson was to this team. And although Michael Porter Jr. will never be the kind of caliber defender that Klay Thompson was at the peak of his powers, the 3-point spacing that he added in the backcourt next to Steph meant so much to that team when they were making dynastic runs, right? So this is a team that desperately needs somebody else who can provide significant scoring, because Jimmy Butler is very passive in the regular season. And even when he's aggressive, he's still very slow paced about how he goes about creating his offense for himself. Draymond Green is primarily more focused on anchoring the defense. Their center rotation is very questionable, I believe, especially because I think that Quentin Post and Trace Jackson Davis, although good fits for the Warriors system, I don't think maximize what they desperately need right now, which is rim protection, which is why Draymond Green plays the center so dang much, because he's kind of the only guy who really fulfills it at a high level. But other than that, when you have Buddy Hield not shooting the ball well, that 3-point element that's missing, it creates so many glaring holes, especially in the half-court offense. The article goes on to say that an offer for Michael Porter Jr. could look like Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, or Buddy Hield as salary pieces. I believe it would be Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody or Buddy Hield, essentially. I don't think it would be all three. They also own their full set of first-round picks, which strengthens the leverage. Adding Day'Ron Sharpe could address multiple gaps. Again, as I mentioned, the Golden State Warriors having a big issue with rim protection. The front office must gauge how much of tomorrow they are willing to part with to maximize Curry's window. And I think that statement alone is a great way to kind of reflect on this entire thing. Is I believe that going after Michael Porter Jr., and maybe not him specifically, but I feel like he's a good poster child for what I'm going to say about the Golden State Warriors in full, which is a Jonathan Kuminga trade must happen by the NBA trade deadline if the admission of the Golden State Warriors front office is that they are trying to maximize this window with Stephen Curry. Whether or not they make a trade involving Jonathan Kuminga to maximize this window will tell you everything you need to know about the next 2 years for the Golden State Warriors. Because this is their last true ditch effort to move Jonathan Kuminga for enough value to give them a win now player that could help them be a force in the Western Conference this season and potentially next season as well, depending on the contract. But for example, Michael Porter Jr. would be signed through this season and next season as well. And also a fit within the Golden State Warriors system enough to be able to truly see what good talent around Steph Curry looks like when you have a fully optimized roster. So that's a fancy smancy way of saying if the Golden State Warriors do not trade Jonathan Kuminga at the NBA trade deadline, they do not believe in this window that Steph Curry is operating in, and they do not believe as much as they come off as in terms of thinking that they are championship contenders with the core of Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, and Draymond Green. If they do not move Jonathan Kuminga at this NBA trade deadline, they are kicking the can down the road and admitting that they are simply waiting for the age of Jimmy Butler, Steph Curry, and Draymond Green to catch up to them fall off the cliff, and those three, along with potentially Steve Kerr, probably too, to all ride off into the sunset and then they have to pick up the pieces where they may lay. Not moving Jonathan Kuminga would be a malpractice by the front office if your intention truly is to give Steph Curry the chance, the best chance, as the leader of this franchise, the icon of this franchise, to make at least one more run at an NBA championship. That's a huge level of weight to hold on your shoulders if you're Michael Porter Jr. if you are traded for Jonathan Kuminga. You're coming in as a quote unquote missing piece, or maybe even the missing piece for the Warriors if you are coming in traded for Jonathan Kuminga. You, as Michael Porter Jr., in that trade are being viewed very similarly to how the Denver Nuggets viewed Cam Johnson, your replacement, as this cherry on top slash moving needle moving piece to put them over the top to help them get back into championship contention. Right? So the Warriors are in an interesting situation because all the names associated with the Warriors are the right kind of names. Anthony Davis, I think it's a good name. Nicholas Claxton, I think it's a good name. Michael Porter Jr., I think it's a good name. I don't love DeMar DeRozan as much, but I think at this point the idea is just to get more perimeter shot creation, to help more specifically shot creation from guys who can create for themselves. So he's interesting. Zach LaVine, I've heard his name. He's also interesting because he's more of the guard version of what they're looking to get out of Michael Porter Jr. in that kind of trade. I think Lauri Markkanen makes a lot of sense, but I feel like that's a lot more out of reach than most would like to admit, just given the fact that it seems like they're very misinformed and confused about what they think they want their future to look like right now, especially involving Lauri Markkanen. The question is, out of all the guys that I named, is Michael Porter Jr. the piece? Because once you move Jonathan Kuminga, it's done. Once Jonathan Kuminga is moved, that's the end of the story. Once Jonathan Kuminga is moved, you have fired your last arrow in the quiver. You have thrown out your last real chance to get a big name or get some kind of, realistic fit piece to maximize the next 2 years. If you miss, you blew it. And if you hit on it, you can say that you did right by Steph Curry by giving him the best opportunity possible to win another championship. Now, the player you acquire has a lot more to do with that than just simply the draft capital or the trade package you put together to get said player. But as the front office making that decision to pick between Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Anthony Davis, Michael Porter Jr., like the discernment you have to have as a front office to get that right is almost as important as whichever player you choose proving you right. Because your philosophy around who fits best for the timetable and the goal you have is going to be the first domino to fall in terms of setting this Warriors team up to prove that to have been the right decision to begin with. I wonder if Michael Porter Jr. is that decision. Oddly enough, I think I like Anthony Davis for their team a bit more, but I think it goes to the importance of the need for real rim protection, especially in the Western Conference. I mean, it's a Western Conference where you have Nikola Jokic, Victor Wembanyama, Alperen Sengun, Ivica Zubac, right? Chet Holmgren. So a lack of real strong rim protection can really hurt a team, especially like the Golden State Warriors, who also are struggling as a team to shoot the three ball. But Michael Porter Jr. could also be a really dangerous fit because he contributes to your ability to shoot the three ball, while maybe being able to get a more budget friendly center on the market and add Michael Porter Jr. as well, as opposed to if you go after someone like Anthony Davis, you might have to give up the fall. You might have to give up a little bit more. You might have to give up a little bit more because he has All Star and because he has champion next to his name. Michael Porter has champion. He doesn't have All Star. I don't know if that matters a lot, but it depends. With that being said, you guys let me know in the comment section down below, like, if you're, especially if you're a Warriors fan, how do you feel about the idea of Michael Porter Jr. being on your team? Let's say it's for Jonathan Kuminga, Buddy Hield, and maybe like a second or two, or maybe they would have to give up a future first, given that they do have all of their own first round picks for the foreseeable future at least. What if you had to do Jonathan Kuminga, Buddy Hield, and a future first, but you still could maybe keep someone like Moses Moody to get a center for a more budget friendly price? Or what if you had to do Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, and Buddy Hield with a first round pick? Or let's say it was Jonathan Kuminga, Buddy Hield, and Trace Jackson Davis in exchange for Michael Porter Jr. and Day'Ron Sharpe. And you solve your 3-point shooting issue and you get a viable backup center / starting center who can either start next to Draymond Green or behind Draymond Green. Food for thought, but I'm interested to hear what Warriors fans specifically, but anybody in the comment section, but specifically Warriors fans, how would you guys feel about MPJ on your team, especially if you could maybe add someone like a Day'Ron Sharpe in the same trade?